Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Thank you, Lasky and Corla. Oireachtas, last night Donald Trump took aim at almost every traditional ally of the United States with a blunt and destructive economic weapon. The tariffs that his administration have imposed worldwide risk plunging us all into a global recession. In his Rose Garden address, Donald Trump exhibited zero economic rationale for pursuing such approach, but perhaps proved why he is one of very few people in the history of the planet that ended up bankrupting a casino. The President accused states, both friends and foe, of essential fiscal grand larceny, with no basis for these claims. The great deceiver that he is states that his tariffs are reciprocal, claiming that the EU charging VAT justifies his tariffs. He even claims that these are discounted tariffs based up on a made-up 39% rate that he claims the EU applies to the United States. Again, no basis to these claims. There is a new reality coming to bear now in the entire world, and the United States, unfortunately, can no longer be trusted as an economic ally. In responding to this change in our relationship, the European Union needs to be measured but resolute. We do need to be strategic in how we respond to these announcements, with negotiations first. But at the same time, we cannot allow Trump run roughshod over global markets without standing up to him. We need to react with urgency and not panic. There is no doubt that Donald Trump is displaying traits of a wannabe strongman who sees an opportunity to damage democracies around the world. And with only 25% of global citizens now living under liberal democracies compared to 50% in 2004, it is now more important than ever that we take a stand against any attempts to weaken other democracies. We must resist the rise of the autocrat. We now need to play our role as a member of the EU to bring the US to the negotiating table. But to do that, we will need to stand firm with our allies, and our allies will need to stand firm with us. In this House, our focus must be on helping workers in Irish firms preparing for the threat of job displacement in vulnerable sectors. We in Labour, with a policy led by my colleague Deputy Jed Nash, want to see a new short-term wage subsidy scheme, such as the German Kurzarbeit model, which will keep workers in their jobs in order to retain skills and employment in exposed parts of the economy during what will be a tumultuous period. We have been calling for this since the pandemic, and the money to fund this scheme can be found in the Social Insurance Fund and the National Training Fund, both of which are in substantial surplus. We also absolutely need to diversify our economy and need to continue to invest in our infrastructure. We need to learn from the lessons of the past, because if we are not careful, we will lose the ability to grow our economy through hemorrhaging our skilled people and economic attractiveness through underinvestment in public transport and housing infrastructure. Taoiseach, you've already hosted briefings, and I know you said you'll host more. We welcome that and hope that they will continue. Taoiseach, we also want you to ask, will you confirm whether your government is considering introducing such a short-term wage subsidy scheme model, or any other Ireland-specific models which will help keep workers in their jobs?
Well, thanks very much to Deputy Smith for the question. And can I firstly say I share your view of some of what we heard at the press conference in the Rose Garden. And that's what it was. It was a press conference. And of course, you have to then work through the legal detail. And we're already seeing, the announcement of things that were announced that they were coming in at midnight last night actually aren't coming in until the 5th of April or the 9th of April. So there's a fair bit of teasing through beyond the headline announcements. But certainly, the European Union doesn't impose tariffs of anything like 39% on the United States at all. And the European Union, of which we're proudly a member, we should never, and you didn't, but we shouldn't talk about them as distinct parts. We're members of the European Union. The European Union has been very clear that we want talks, not tariffs. And that's been the approach that we've been making on an almost daily basis. I think there was a view, though, clearly, that President Trump was determined to have that Rose Garden moment before getting to the talks. We think that's regrettable. He's had that moment now. Now can we get on with the talking? And I think that's the approach we should take. And I agree with you in terms of being, I actually think you put it well with measured but resolute. There is a moment where we have to actually show President Trump, hang on a second, we are a very big economic bloc. There's 450 million of us. The economic relationship between the EU and the US is worth 1.6 trillion euro a year. It doesn't matter anybody's politics. That's not a relationship that can be sniffed at. It matters. It matters to people who voted for him in terms of their jobs, in terms of their well-being, in terms of the price of their consumer goods. So the moment has happened. He's had the big bang moment. He's had the little charts and gone through all the tariffs. Now it's actually about calm, mature, measured engagement. I agree with you on the European unity piece, and I must say I'm struck I'm struck by the strength of European unity, and I think this is for a couple of reasons. One, we value our European membership. The European Union matters to all of us. But I think it's also the fact that President Trump has decided to target so many different areas. So if you're in Slovakia and Germany with big car industries, that's been one impact. Steel and aluminium has had a disproportionate impact on others. Of course, the EU-wide measures yesterday, potential further measures on pharma. So what's very clear is there'll be different countries who may feel a moment of pressure at different times. But all of us across the European Union are badly impacted, as is the US, by a high tariff protectionist attitude to trade. Look, I agree, protecting jobs has to be our number one job collectively. Of course it does. And the government will keep an open mind and will engage constructively on supports that may be required in the time ahead. I've heard colleagues make that point, including the Minister for Enterprise today. Our state agencies, Enterprise Ireland and IDA Ireland, are at the Trade Forum. They'll be there again tomorrow, as our business representative groups, and we will always engage. And we have a proud track record across successive governments of supporting Irish business. But I think the first thing we have to do is try and mitigate, not accept this as the final outcome here. Actually take up the opportunity now to negotiate, to try and negotiate down, to try and get to a better place. And that has to be the first priority, because I think that mitigation will do more to protect jobs, growth, investment and our economy than any single support scheme we may be able to put in place. And absolutely those briefings will continue on an as required and regular basis.
Thank you. Taoiseach, I think it might be somewhat optimistic to think last night was a moment and now we can move on to negotiations. My fear is that we're going to have more moments like this from the President of the United States. But again, I think EU unity is easier on trade because that is the raison d'etre of the EU, essentially as a trade agreement between European states from which peace and prosperity will flow. So unity is strong, and we should ensure that that continues, there is no doubt. But we can do things in Ireland, such as a short-term work wage subsidy scheme, the work for which has to be done now, as the potential impact of these tariffs will then emerge in the weeks, months and years ahead. But we have to do the work now. So, Taoiseach, can you confirm if government is considering a short-term work wage subsidy scheme? And just to say, both ICTU and IBEC have previously called for such a support. Will supports like those put in place during Brexit, such as a credit guarantee scheme or a new marketing fund, be considered? And can you also confirm if there will be a comprehensive assessment of the companies impacted and, as best we can, the potential number of jobs that could be impacted? Taoiseach.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. So I'm very clear that there will be many moments. I think you're right on that, and I've already suggested I believe there will be sector-specific moments to come. Point I was making, though, was in my engagement with the US Commerce Secretary and others, it was very clear that the US wasn't mandated to engage or negotiate until after this Liberation Day, as they bizarrely describe it. That's happened now, and now we need to get on with the engagement and negotiation. And the European Commission, the European Union needs to make judgment calls as to what's required to get into that meaningful process of engagement. In relation to yes, looking at kind of sectors and impacts, that work is already underway. In relation to the impact of jobs, we've done some modelling. The ESRI has done some modelling. It's been produced. The main impact in the first instance seems to be from a sustained period of tariff, a slowdown in new job growth and employment growth. That's not good either, of course. But working to retain the jobs that we have will obviously be the absolute priority. I don't want to give a knee-jerk response to any specific scheme. We have a meeting of the LEAF tomorrow, the Labour Employer Economic Forum. We'll have a meeting of the Government Trade Forum, and of course we're happy to engage and share insights and work with you on supports that may be required in the time ahead. But priority today and priority for the coming days is to mitigate the impact of the tariffs and get it to a better place.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.